I collapsed at my pharmacy. The pharmacist called 911. They rushed me to the hospital. The doctor said I'd had a stroke, a serious one. He said I could die. He said they needed my family there immediately. My wife answered the phone, and I'll never forget what she said. The doctor told her, "Your husband had a stroke. It's serious. He could die. We need you here." And my wife said, "We have a cruise booked in 5 days. Can this wait?" I was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, fighting for my life. And my wife was worried about a vacation. The doctor was silent. Then he said, "Ma'am, your husband might not survive the night." She said, even when told serious, he could die, they still left. When they finally came back from that cruise, I was gone, but not the way they expected. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining us at True Experience. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to stay connected with more real-life tales of betrayal and justice. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community across USA, Canada, and around the world. Quick note, this is a personal account based on real experiences. Names and some details have been changed for privacy. Now, here's what happened. My name is Ben. I'm 63 years old now. Back then, I was 58. I'd been married to Linda for 32 years. We had 2 sons. David was 29. Michael was 26. Both of them lived about 40 minutes away with their own families. I worked as an engineer for the same company for 34 years. Linda hadn't worked in over 2 decades. She stayed home. She had her book club, her yoga classes, her bridge group twice a week. We lived comfortably. The house was paid off. The retirement account was healthy. I never questioned where the money went. I trusted her. That Tuesday afternoon in March, I went to pick up my blood pressure medication. I'd been on it for about 6 years. Nothing unusual. I walked into the pharmacy at 4:30. I remember checking my watch. I handed the pharmacist my prescription slip. Then the room started spinning. I reached for the counter. My left arm went numb. My vision blurred. I heard someone say my name. Then I was on the floor. I couldn't move my left side. I couldn't speak clearly. The pharmacist, a young woman named Amy, knelt beside me. She called 911. She held my hand and told me to stay calm. The ambulance came. They loaded me onto a stretcher. At the hospital, they ran tests. CT scan, blood work. The neurologist came in around 7 that evening. He was a man in his 40s with glasses and a calm voice. He told me I'd had an ischemic stroke. A clot had blocked blood flow to part my brain. He said it was serious. He said the next 24 hours were critical. He asked if I had family nearby. I gave him Linda's cell phone number. He stepped outside the room to call her. I could hear his voice through the door, though I couldn't make out every word. When he came back in, his face looked different, tighter. He didn't say anything at first. He adjusted my 4. Then he told me my wife said she'd try to come by in the morning. Try to come by. I just had a stroke. I might die, and she'd try to come by. Later that night, a nurse came in to check on me. She was an older woman, maybe in her 50s. She had kind eyes. She told me the doctor had spoken to my wife again. She said my wife mentioned they had a cruise planned for that weekend. She said my wife asked if this could wait until after they got back. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, not just because of the stroke, because I didn't have words for what I was feeling. The nurse squeezed my hand. She said, "You focus on getting better. That's all that matters right now." I spent that first night alone. Machines beeped. Nurses came and went. I drifted in and out of sleep. I kept thinking Linda would walk through the door, that she'd realize how serious this was, that she'd come. She didn't. The next morning, the neurologist came back. He told me I was stable, but still at risk. He said I'd need physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. He said recovery would take months, maybe longer. He asked again about my family. I told him my sons lived nearby. He said he'd call them. David showed up around noon. He worked in sales and had taken the morning off. He looked scared when he walked in. He hugged me carefully like I might break. He asked what happened. I told him what I could. My speech was slow and slurred, but I managed. He asked where his mother was. I said, "She's busy." He frowned. He pulled out his phone and stepped into the hallway. I could hear his voice rising. He came back in 10 minutes later. His face was red. He said she told him she couldn't cancel the cruise, that they'd lose the deposit, that I was stable now, so there was no emergency. David sat down hard in the chair next to my bed. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "Dad, I'm sorry." I told him it wasn't his fault. Michael came that evening after work. He's quieter than David, always has been. He sat beside me and held my hand. He didn't ask about Linda. David must have told him. The three of us sat there in silence for a while. Then Michael said he'd stay the night. He slept in the chair beside my bed. Linda and the boys left for the cruise that Saturday. She'd booked it for herself, David's wife Emily, Michael's wife Sarah, and the grandkids. A 7-day Caribbean cruise. She planned it a month ago as a family trip. I wasn't supposed to go. I had a work commitment I couldn't move. So she'd invited our daughters-in-law instead. But now I was in the hospital, and she still went. The boys didn't go. They told their wives to go without them. Emily and Sarah hesitated, but Linda insisted. She said there was nothing they could do at the hospital anyway. She said I was stable. She said they deserved a vacation. So my wife, my daughters-in-law, and my grandchildren went on a cruise while I recovered from a stroke. I stayed in the hospital for 8 days. David and Michael took turns visiting. They brought me books I couldn't focus on, magazines I couldn't read. They talked to me about work, about their kids, about nothing important. They were trying. I appreciated it. The physical therapist came every day. I had to relearn how to walk without dragging my left leg. The speech therapist worked with me on forming words clearly. The occupational therapist taught me how to button a shirt again, how to hold a fork. Simple things I'd done my whole life without thinking. I was discharged on a Thursday. David drove me home. The house was empty. Linda wasn't back yet. The cruise ended Saturday. David offered to stay with me, but I told him I'd be fine. He made me promise to call if I needed anything. That night, I sat in my recliner in the living room. The house was quiet. I looked around at 32 years of marriage, photos on the walls, furniture we'd picked out together, the coffee table Linda had insisted on buying even though I thought it was too expensive. I thought about the doctor's phone call, about her asking if it could wait, about her choosing a vacation over me. I didn't cry. I just sat there. Linda came home Sunday afternoon. She walked in with a tan and a suitcase full of souvenirs. She set her bags down in the entryway and came into the living room. She looked at me in the recliner. She said, "You look better." I didn't respond. She asked if I was hungry. I said no. She went into the kitchen and started unpacking groceries. She talked about the cruise, about the shows they saw, the islands they visited, the food. She talked like nothing had happened. I listened. I didn't interrupt. Over the next few weeks, I focused on recovery. I went to therapy 3 times a week. I practiced my exercises at home. I slowly got stronger. My speech improved. I could walk without a cane after about a month. Linda went back to her normal routine. Book club, yoga, bridge. She asked how therapy was going. She drove me to appointments when David or Michael couldn't. She made dinner most nights. On the surface, everything looked normal, but I was paying attention now to things I'd never noticed before. She spent money constantly. New clothes every week. Expensive lunches with friends. Spa days. Salon appointments. I'd never tracked it closely before. I just worked and deposited my paycheck and assumed we were fine. I started looking at our accounts. I found credit card statements I'd never seen. Balances in the thousands. 5 different cards. All in her name, but tied to our joint accounts. She'd been paying minimums for years. I found receipts. Shopping trips I didn't know about. Weekend getaways with her friends while I was traveling for work. None of it criminal. None of it outrageous on its own. But together, over years, added up. I didn't confront her. I just watched. One evening in May, about 2 months after my stroke, I was going through the mail. There was a letter from our insurance company. I opened it. It was a statement showing a claim for my hospital stay. The total cost before insurance was over $180,000. Our portion after insurance was about $12,000. I showed it to Linda. I said, "Did you see this?" She glanced at it. She said, "Insurance covered most of it." I said, "We still owe $12,000. She shrugged. She said, "We'll pay it off." I asked how. She didn't answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her voice on the phone. Can this wait? I kept thinking about her on that cruise ship, dancing, eating, laughing, while I was learning how to walk again. The next morning, I called a lawyer. His name was Thomas. He'd handled our wills years ago. I scheduled an appointment for the following week. I didn't tell Linda. When I met with Thomas, I explained everything. The stroke, the phone call, the cruise, the spending. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked what I wanted to do. I said, "I want to protect what I've worked for." He nodded. He explained my options. Divorce was one, but there was another. I'd been the sole earner for 30 years. The house, the retirement accounts, the savings, all of it came from my income. In our state, that didn't matter much in divorce. She'd still be entitled to half. Maybe more, depending on the judge. But I could make changes now. While I was still alive, while I still had control. Thomas helped me set up a trust. I moved the house into it. I moved most of the retirement accounts. I named David and Michael as beneficiaries. I set it up so Linda would have access to enough to live on, but not control of everything, not the ability to drain it. It took 3 months to finalize. Linda never asked what I was doing. She never noticed the paperwork I was signing. In August, I told her I wanted to separate our finances. I said I wanted my own checking account. My paycheck would go there. I'd give her a set amount each month for household expenses. She could spend her own money however she wanted. But I was going to manage mine. She was angry. She said I didn't trust her. I said that was true. She asked why. I reminded her about the cruise, about the phone call, about me lying in a hospital bed while she was worried about a vacation deposit. She said I was being unfair, that I was punishing her for one mistake. I said it wasn't one mistake. It was 30 years of choices I'd ignored. We argued. She cried. She said I was cruel. I didn't argue back. I just held firm. We separated our finances. I opened my own account. I deposited my paycheck there. I gave her $2,000 a month. That was it. She'd have to cover everything else from her own savings or get a job. She didn't get a job. She cut back on some things. Fewer lunches out. Fewer shopping trips. But she didn't change much. I kept going to therapy. I kept getting stronger. By December, I was almost back to normal. I still had some weakness in my left hand. My speech had a slight hesitation sometimes. But I could work. I could drive. I could live independently. I started thinking about what came next. In January, I filed for divorce. Linda was stunned. She said she thought we were working things out. I said I was done working. I wanted out. The divorce took 8 months. It wasn't pleasant. She fought for half of everything. My lawyer showed the judge the trust, the separate accounts, the documented spending. The judge gave her a settlement. Not half, but enough to live on. She got the car, a portion of my pension, a lump sum from savings. I kept the house, the bulk of the retirement accounts, my future income. The divorce was finalized in September, a year and a half after my stroke. David and Michael supported me. They understood. They'd seen what I'd seen. They'd watched their mother choose a cruise over their father's life. They didn't cut her off, but things were different, strained. Linda moved into an apartment across town. She got a part-time job at a department store. She complained to anyone who would listen that I'd left her with nothing, that I was vindictive, that I'd turned our sons against her. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I just moved forward. I'm 63 now. I live alone in the house I paid for. I see my sons and grandkids regularly. I retired last year. I travel some. I volunteer at the library on Thursdays. I'm healthier now than I was before the stroke. I watch what I eat. I exercise. I take my medications. Linda is 61. She still works part-time. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment. She sees the boys on holidays. We don't speak. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the divorce, if I regret how I handled things. I tell them no. I don't regret protecting what I built. I don't regret walking away from someone who saw me as an inconvenience. That phone call taught me something. When someone shows you they are in a crisis, believe them. I was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for my life, and my wife was worried about a vacation deposit. I survived the stroke. I survived the marriage. And I came out the other side on my own terms. That's all I wanted. Thanks for listening, friends. If this story meant something to you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life accounts. Drop a comment and let us know your thoughts. We read every one. Take care of yourselves. And remember, you're worth more than being someone's inconvenience.